that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 360th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
And you can tell that Tom is much more capable than I am because I only have one mouse and he has two. Every day I go to the internet and do my news thing. I find usually 15 items of news that I think will be of interest to people, and I put them up to my blog, geoharvey.com, Geoharvey, and people who are watching this show have two places they can click on to go to see the stuff that we've got, and one of them is the blog that you and I use to set the show up, so they can just follow us at that blog.
Okay,
but they can also go to geoharvey.com. Our daily review, as I said, it's February 20th, and we have a picture of a water treatment plant coming up.
well, that's an inside joke.
There it is. That's the Tidal Basin in Washington, D.C.
And those are cherry trees, which very soon will be in bloom.
Yeah, and by the way, spring is coming on the 19th of March.
Okay.
That's really early.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's the earliest in over 100 years.
Well, it's a leap year.
It's a leap. That's why. It's but
one
it's
extra day in there.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the Tidal Basin, and the first time I heard Tidal Basin, I thought, what is that? A water treatment plant?
That's the inside joke.
That's the inside joke. What do you got for a title on this?
Climate crisis. Let me put me up here.
Put you up. Yeah, put you up.
People complain they don't know what I look like.
Well, now you know.
Climate crisis is coming for the Tidal Basin in D.C.
And this is from Echo Watch. And by the way, for anybody who's complaining about Tom not being seen enough, Tom is the person who controls that. The Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. overlooks the Tidal Basin, which is a man-made body of water surrounded by cherry trees. Visitors who stroll along the water's edge, gazing at the stately monument, are forced off parts of the path by water. The land is sinking and the seas are rising. And by the way, this doesn't happen every couple of weeks the way sunny day flooding does. This is every day.
This is daily. Well, a quick takeaway here from the article. The entire mall sits in a 100-year floodplain. Okay? Twice a day, the basin floods and water spills onto the walkway.
Yeah.
Okay, preserving this national treasure in its current form is no longer an option.
Yes.
Okay, so we need new thinking about how to protect important places.
Well,
and I'm sure they got some good thinkers.
They've got
thinking
people
how
working
to do
on it. Yeah, but the thing that bothers me about it is those cherry trees' roots are in an area that gets inundated with salt water.
Well, they're going to definitely figure that one out.
They're going to have to.
They've got a tough one to figure out.
They've got a tough one.
Because this is a national treasure.
Yeah, and this is happening because the seas are, in part because the seas are rising. And by the way, somebody told me the seas aren't rising, the land is sinking.
Well, in some places that's true.
In some places the land is sinking.
In some places they're both happening.
Yeah, but I checked, and what I found was NASA's got satellites up there, and they're measuring the height of the sea by laser.
Okay.
And they can measure it over the entire ocean. They're not just measuring this from sticks stuck in the
I'm sure they got the
floor
whole
of a
globe
harbor.
mapped.
They have the whole globe mapped, and they are claiming an accuracy to something like 1/8 of an inch.
Yeah, that's believable.
And so they're looking at these things and they're saying, what's the average height of the sea? And then the waves go by and the computers figure it out, and they've got, the sea is rising. There's just no doubt about that. They will show you a couple of places where, because of currents and so forth, the sea has actually dropped a tiny bit, and a couple of places where it's not really rising yet. But that has to do with currents. In a lot of places, in some places, it's rising a lot.
They don't talk much about the accuracy of the satellite cameras.
Yeah.
But they can read a newspaper.
Wow.
Someone can be holding a newspaper on the land, on Earth, and they can read a newspaper from. They don't really want to let us know too much about these things because
if we knew, we would be upset.
we would be upset. Yeah, you
Well,
got it. That's
it's
exactly
hard to
right.
believe that they could read a newspaper, but I know
They can.
I know
Yeah.
they can see very small things.
Oh yeah.
You know. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we might just as well. Can't dance.
We have an item from the Guardian.
From the Guardian yet. Bushfire, Royal Commission to look at mitigation, but not climate change. Huh?
What is
We're
this?
talking about Australia here.
Well, yeah, this couldn't happen in the United States because we know all about climate change and we're being objective as opposed to objectivist.
Well, this Prime Minister, who you'll just mention in a second, he's getting himself in trouble here.
This is Scott Morrison. He's the guy who sat in the Parliament and held up a lump of coal and said, "This is coal, it's not dangerous."
Okay.
All right, in the Parliament. Prime Minister Scott Morrison released letters patent establishing a national inquiry into bushfires. It is to examine the powers of Australia's government to call out the military, national standards for hazard reduction and disaster mitigation, but it is not going to look into climate change.
Well, he's, you know,
he's in denial.
He's in denial. Well, a little takeaway here, I'm going to talk about it. Morrison said that the inquiry acknowledges climate change and its impact. That was the first thing it said. And focuses on actions that make Australians safer, such as preparedness, resilience, and recovery through the actions of all levels of government and the community. Sounds good. But he ignored the role Australia must play in reducing emissions.
Yeah.
Okay, which is the bottom line.
Yes.
He's in denial.
Yep. Denial is an interesting thing. I think people have...
It's a river in Egypt, isn't it?
That's right. It's a river in Egypt.
Well, we got a picture coming up, and I'll pull it up here while you're talking.
That is a real live coral reef.
That's one of the few left. The major one in Australia is in deep doo-doo.
Well, the Great Barrier Reef.
Great Barrier Reef.
Just, yes.
It may be over.
Real trouble. Yeah, they don't expect it to survive. That is an area of nature that is, I don't know, what, 1,700 miles long? And it's
That's about right.
It's
a huge thing.
Just about dead. You know, it's like taking a forest and turning it into a desert. Okay, what do you got for a title?
Well, this is a very interesting and informative article, and it is called "Climate Change Could Kill All of the Earth's Coral Reefs by 2100," scientists warn.
This is from CNN. Climate change could destroy almost all of the Earth's coral reef habitats by 2100, University of Hawaii Manoa reported, and about 70 to 90% of all coral reefs are expected to disappear in the next 20 years due to warming oceans, acidic water, and pollution. Now, acidic water is one of the things that people have to understand. As the water gets acid, the coral has a hard time building
a shell.
A shell.
All shellfish do.
All shellfish. You know, we reported a few weeks ago about crabs not having...
and clams and oysters and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Well, there's a good video on this. This is from CNN, and CNN usually does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a good video. It's called The Race to Save the Great Barrier Reef. It's about 3.5 minutes. Worth looking at. As I said, this is an interesting and informative article. So,
okay, we're up to February 21st, Friday, and we have an item from the Natural Resources Defense Council.
Well, I just want to mention one more thing.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of photos on that one that are worth looking at. And basically it say, how are humans harming coral reefs?
Oh.
Which is interesting. And the answer is quick: acidification, pollution, oil spills, septic waste, and pesticides.
And there are nations that depend on this. That depend on coral reefs.
Absolutely.
Because they are coral reefs.
They are coral reefs.
Yeah.
We're up to Friday, February 21st.
I said that.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Okay.
Well, FERC excludes clean energy from New York State's capacity market.
This is something
kind of crazy.
It isn't crazy. This is government that is doing things by fiat, excluding democracy from functioning properly. That's what's going on. You'll notice, by the way, FERC is supposed to have 5 members, And the members are supposed to be chosen so that there's a balance between Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have 5 members now. It's got 3.
And they're all Republicans.
No, there's 1 Democrat. But the thing is, the next person nominated would have to be a Democrat.
And this guy doesn't want to nominate one.
No, apparently not. And what they're doing here, a decision applying buyer-side mitigation to state-supported resources that participate in New York's wholesale capacity market is the latest attempt by the hyper-politicized Trump FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, to try to pose barriers to deployment of clean energy resources by the states. There are not a lot of places that have really explained this very well. But did you get a good explanation? Go ahead.
The capacity is a promise.
Yes.
A promise to provide energy at a later date if you need it.
Yes.
In other words, they're saying we got this plant standby just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular case, they did not include renewables in this capacity.
And
okay, so basically they're saying we're going to turn up a turbine and charge you a lot of money.
Right. And what they have, one of the things that they're doing is basically they're saying we're not excluding them because they're renewables. We're excluding them because they qualify for incentives.
Well, that's a smokescreen.
Well, of course it is. But you see, the point is they want coal and gas. By the way, notice what's happening to the coal and gas, oil and gas index and the coal index.
They're not doing too well.
No, they're not doing too well. And FERC is trying to support them by making it impossible to put renewable energy onto the market.
Didn't we just mention a river in Egypt the other?
Denial, yes. You know, people in denial, it's an amazing thing to watch, you know, and it's like, wait a minute, this person doesn't see what's going on. They don't see it. You know, the train is coming down the track and you're sitting there on the track smoking a cigarette or something and saying, it'll stop. It isn't going to stop.
I'm thinking about denial. A long time ago, I saw this movie. I think it wasn't a movie, a TV show. I think it was the Twilight Zone.
Oh, yes.
And the protagonist in it is always, he's looking at us, very vain guy. And he's always saying, don't you think this is my best side? And at the very end of the movie, you see on the other side of his face, he's got a great big wart or a great big mole.
Well,
we got a picture
he may
coming
have been
up.
correct.
Let's
okay,
let's
we have
move
a
up and
picture
get
coming
this
up?
Picture. Yeah.
Is it this picture?
Well, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like that one. For those who want to know, it's a wind plant in Pakistan. And what got me about the picture is you see all these pictures of all these windmills in the middle of a field, but you don't see the electrical equipment that you're seeing in this picture here. And you got to have it.
You got to have it.
So it's an interesting thing.
Yes, it is.
In any case, that's a wind plant in Pakistan, and
Yes.
there's a lot of them growing up, putting up there.
Yep.
They're bringing power to the rural people who have never had power
before. And we're going to mention something, I think. Do we have an item about Jimmy Carter?
About?
Jimmy Carter?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Jimmy Carter, his farm is supplying half the electric power needed by people in Plains, Georgia, because it's got a big PV plant on it.
Maybe we could do that next week.
Well, we could. You know, it was this week's news. But the thing is, Jimmy Carter grew up on a farm that didn't have any electric power.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's really kind of
So he wanted
into
electric
this.
power.
He wanted electric power, and he's focused on that. And also, Jimmy Carter was in the cleanup that took place after an accident at a nuclear power plant, I think in Canada, while he was in the Navy. And he was engaged in nuclear stuff when he was in the Navy.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So he's very cognizant of what's going on with a lot of this stuff. Okay, what do you have for a title?
Renewable energy could power the world by 2050.
Wow, that's the same
It could
title
do
I've got.
Well, it probably could do it sooner than that, but...
Yep. By mid-century, virtually all of the world's demand for electricity could be met by renewable power. This is the consensus of 47 peer-reviewed research papers from 13 independent groups with a total of 91 authors that have been brought together by Stanford University in California. This is from a publication called Echo Business.
Well, a quick takeaway here. The technology exists to achieve 100% renewable power if the political will to achieve it can be mustered.
Yes.
Okay, as the cost of renewables has tumbled, which it has, okay, and energy storage solutions multiplied, every part of the world can now find a system that edges fossil fuels out in cost.
Yeah, and you know what you said is if the political will can be found. But what's going to happen in the next few years is that as the prices of renewable energy and storage continue to go down, which they will because of Wright's law, which is a standard law of economics.
It's the economy, stupid.
Yep. What's going to happen is the will to oppose them
is going to dry up. You won't be able to fight the economy.
That's right. That's why the Dow coal and oil and gas indices are down.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this is a very interesting article.
I thought this one was.
That hadn't even occurred to me.
Yeah.
Seasonal pumped hydropower storage could solve the renewable energy storage challenge. And what they mean by seasonal pump storage is very, very large plants.
Yes.
There's a picture on the website of one of these. See, it's an artist concept, but it's up in the mountains there. It's a huge lake up in the mountains and a river down below.
You know, if you go to Google Maps, you can see the pumped storage site at Northfield Mountain.
Well, I was thinking about that site because it's very much like this.
It is, absolutely it is. Except that site, I forget the acreage, but the area, the area of water is 140 acres or something like that. And
but there's a river right there, and they pump it up.
Absolutely, and the upper reservoir is that reservoir on a mountaintop, and the lower reservoir is the river. And when that was put in, which happened the same time that Vermont Yankee was built.
Yes, it was built to match Vermont Yankee.
It had the biggest turbines in the world.
Yeah.
And now they aren't anymore. But
well, it's still a very useful addition to the grid, and right next to it right now there's a great big solar field.
What we're talking about now is operations that dwarf that.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that we should bear in mind here is how do you supply everybody with renewable energy when the renewable energy is either intermittent, as solar is, or variable, as wind is. And the way that you do it
is storage.
You overbuild and you store the excess.
Absolutely.
And this is a really good way to store the excess. There are other ways we could make hydrogen, but you know, this is hydropower.
That technology is moving along.
Yeah. This is from SciTech Daily. Did you read the title?
Well, if I did, I don't remember it, so I'll do it again.
Okay.
Seasonal pumped hydropower storage could solve the renewable energy storage challenge.
Seasonal pumped hydropower storage and established technology. The technology of pumped storage is established.
Yeah, it's just a matter of scale.
It's just a matter of scale. Could be an affordable and sustainable solution to store energy in water, notice, on an annual scale according to IIASA research published in the journal Nature Communications. And you know, this is big. We're talking about establishing fairly large lakes here.
They're talking about big installations here.
Right.
And storing tremendous amounts of water. Right. Like in the spring when the snow is melting, and using it in the summer when everybody's using air conditioning.
Exactly.
That's what they're talking about.
Also, like in the spring when the snow is melting, and using it in August when everybody's dry and needs irrigation. Because they're storing this for multiple purposes.
Yep.
Okay, we're up to Saturday, February 22nd. Unless you've
I just want to mention on this particular article,
Yeah.
There's a picture of mountains containing a seasonal pump storage project.
Yes.
You know, and it's pretty.
It's impressive.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, we'll move along here because we got a couple of guys that are digging a hole in the ice.
There they are.
And let's pull them up so we see what they look like.
Yep.
It's Saturday, February 22nd.
You were absolutely right.
And it says, to combat climate change, human activities are more important than natural feedbacks.
Well,
and we'll have to explain what natural feedbacks are.
Yes.
But basically, it's bugs.
University of Rochester. Scientists at the University of Rochester studied methane emissions from the period of the Earth's history, partly analogous to the warming of the Earth today. There are earlier times in history when the Earth has warmed. They just haven't warmed as fast as we've been doing.
Well, that's what they're doing with these ice drills. I mean, they're going way back into the past. We're talking hundreds of years.
Yeah, drilling into that ice is like opening a book on natural history. Their research, published in Science, suggests human-caused emissions are the greatest concern.
Well, I'll explain a little bit more about what they're doing. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
They're drilling ice cores to determine how much methane from ancient carbon deposits might be released to the atmosphere under warming conditions.
Yes.
Okay, how do they do that? They take core samples, slice them real thick, real thin,
Yeah.
and look at the core samples and examine the bubbles that are in there. And they're
Yes.
there, you know.
Yeah, the bubbles.
And that's exactly what they've been doing. The core samples contain tiny bubbles with ancient air trapped inside.
Right.
And then they're analyzing that air.
Yes.
Okay, and their research indicates that even if methane is released from these deposits, natural microbic buffers, which I would call bugs,
Yes.
they're microbes, bugs.
They're
insects,
microbes,
you
yeah.
know,
They're
not insects.
Not insect bugs.
Protect against release to the atmosphere. So these guys are going to eat up that hydrogen or the methane that's in there. So we need to be more concerned about anthropogenic emissions than natural feedbacks.
Yes.
That's the bottom
Well,
line.
really, we knew that, but they're confirming it.
They're just confirming it, exactly.
Okay, we have an item from CNN.
Yeah, we got another one here. This is climate change is drying up the Colorado River, putting millions at risk of severe water shortages.
We've talked about this before. Now we're talking about it again. The Colorado River, which provides water to more than 40 million people from Denver to Los Angeles, has seen its flow dwindle by 20% compared to last century, and scientists have found that climate change is mainly to blame. And by the way, compared to last century doesn't mean compared to 100 years ago. It means compared to 20 years ago. Our last century was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I'm glad you mentioned that. Well, this Colorado River is no slouch. I mean, this is one of the biggest rivers in America.
Although it is dry in Mexico.
Well, pretty damn close to it. But that's not from global warming. It's from diverting the water.
It's diverting the water, and the Mexicans have been angry about it since before I was born.
Yeah, because we're taking all the water.
We're taking all the water and
before it gets
leaving
to
none for
Mexico.
them.
Well, I got a quick takeaway here on
Yeah.
it. It's 1,450 miles long.
Mm-hmm.
It starts up by Denver, skirts Las Vegas, and empties into the Gulf of California by Baja.
Yeah.
By the time it arrives there, its flow is reduced to a trickle, just exactly what you were talking about. The Mexicans are complaining. Matter of fact, they've been to court about exactly this.
Yeah, they used
been
to
fighting
use-
it for a long time.
They used to use the Colorado River for irrigation.
Well, I'm sure they still do.
And the water in the Colorado River went into the Imperial Valley, and you know, the Americans were taking all the water and leaving the Mexicans with basically nothing.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
So there's a good short video in this, and the article is worth reading.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the ones I might almost say a must read.
Yep.
But we got a picture coming up.
We do.
Let's pull this one. In case you don't know, they're ducks.
They're teal. They're not actually ducks.
They're ducks.
They're ducks. They're just called teal. But that is a Campbell Island teal, which is an endangered species in New Zealand.
Exactly.
And
it doesn't matter of fact, on Campbell Island, they're extinct.
Oh, okay.
But they're being restored as we speak.
Okay.
Climate change may doom 1 in 3 species of plants and animals within the next 50 years.
This is something that I think I knew years ago, but it keeps coming up, and it is scary. Using data from surveys that studied 538 animals, insects, and plants from 581 sites across the globe, researchers from the University of Arizona found that approximately 1 in 3 plant, insect, and animal species could face extinction by 2070. And about 5 years ago, I called up a scientist who worked for the World Wildlife Foundation, the WWF, and I said, wait a minute. What you're saying sounds to me like it means that we're going to be losing another species about every 10 minutes. And he said, yeah, that's
Probably right, yeah.
And I said, okay, what are we talking about here? You know, are we going to lose species of cockroach? And he said, well, some of the species that they're worried about are moose.
Moose?
Moose.
I hadn't heard that one.
He said extirpated in New England, basically. It would not be extinct globally.
But they'd be
for Vermont and New Hampshire, you can
yeah,
forget it.
So you go move north.
Yeah, not just Vermont. And, well, they're in trouble because the ticks are killing them.
Yeah.
They never knew about ticks, and all of a sudden they've got
never
ticks.
developed defenses.
But if they're going to move north, they're going to move into northern forests, which are not where they live. So they're going to have to, they're between a place where they can't live and a place where they can't live. And another one that he said was troubling was the Baltimore Oriole. Another one was the American bald eagle.
The bald eagle.
Bald eagle. Yep.
Wow.
And we're talking about really serious problems developing. And in some cases, some of these animals or insects, bees, we've got species.
The bees are
species of bees that are just in trouble.
Yeah.
And monarch
and
butterflies.
Bees pollinate.
Bees pollinate. They're absolutely
so there's second order consequences we've got to worry about.
Unbelievable, So these are things that we have to consider.
Well, this particular article came from CNN, as you've probably heard me say. CNN usually does a pretty good job. There's a good video on there. It's only about a minute.
Yeah.
And this is what the video is about. What we will have to endure as the climate crisis gets worse.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is from the article. Direct quote. Take a moment to cherish your plants and appreciate the animals you see around you. In 50 years, a third of them may no longer exist.
Well, yeah.
In a worst case scenario, that could rise to over half.
Yes.
So they're not fooling around. This is
they're not
stuff.
fooling around. And of course, we've got that river in Egypt. Denial, and we've got to. This is where Ayn Rand went wrong.
Okay.
She was talking about objectivism.
Yeah.
But her objectivism is not objective. And we need people to open their eyes and look at things objectively instead of saying, well, objectivism tells us that we've got to deal with a healthy market. Well, the market isn't going to be healthy if we don't have food.
Well spoken.
Okay, we are up to February 23rd, which was Sunday, and we've got an item from Clean Technica.
This is an interview, actually, but it's a good one.
It's an interesting article.
USA braces for a tsunami of microgrids as the Defense Department wades in.
This is tsunami of microgrids?
Yeah.
Okay. The U.S. Department of Defense has been exploring new microgrid technology for at least 10 years or so. And Tina Casey, by the way, who's the writer who produced this, she writes a lot for Clean Technica, but she specializes in military stuff.
Okay.
In general. She specializes in energy stuff, but...
That's the author of this.
Yeah, but she also specializes in military, which is why she, ties into the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense has been exploring these new technologies, and it's finally tired of pussyfooting around. Last week, it decided on a step that would bring microgrids to scores of DoD facilities.
I'll mention a little bit about what microgrids actually are, just to avoid confusion.
Yeah.
Okay. First, I'll put me up so people know what I look like.
Good idea. This means that I can wipe my nose and nobody will know.
Well, a microgrid serves a relatively small, defined set of users.
Yes.
Okay. Typically with electricity that it generates itself. They're usually connected to the wider grid, but they can island themselves off when needed. So if the lights go out on a wider grid, microgrids can keep the lights on for their users.
Yes.
Which is one of the biggest reasons why they make sense. They would make sense right here in Brattleboro.
Well, there are microgrids in Brattleboro. The hospital has got a microgrid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Brattleboro retreat.
That's a microgrid.
Yeah, the Brattleboro. Well, if you think about anybody who's got solar panels and a battery and their grid tied has got their own microgrid. It's a one family or one house or even one person microgrid. But you could have groups of houses, 2 or 3 houses that are put together.
Well, we've talked about a little microgrid that exists in Brooklyn.
Yes, that's right. Although that's not all that little.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
No, it started as only about 3 or 4 houses, and now it's getting bigger.
And it's kind of sprawling. It's kind of all over the place.
I haven't been following it lately, but
it's
just interesting. It's just something guys did by themselves.
Yeah, it was like one rooftop or something like that, maybe a couple, and now it's like across the street and down the block, and Okay.
Well, we got a picture coming up.
We
here.
do,
I think we do.
There you go. And I should say about microgrids, if you think about it, every ship at sea is a microgrid.
Absolutely.
This is old technology. It's just that
Well,
you can put renewable energy into it, and if you do, it can keep going without any fossil fuel inputs or grid inputs.
I know the energy department in Brattleboro is thinking about microgrids, and I've looked at the transmission lines through Brattleboro.
Yes.
It would make sense to have 3.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, just because of the transmission lines.
Well, this is something that I've been pushing Brattleboro to do for literally for years.
Well, it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it would really make sense when I won't say if, when the grid goes down. The grid is going to go down. It's not going to stay down.
Oh, it will.
But it's going to go down.
It goes down from time to time.
Reasonably well.
Okay.
And it's nice to be able to have power.
We have an item here from Wired. Is that right? Yes, from Wired.
Wired, yep.
And a picture. And that picture,
I think, called agrivoltaics. Explain to us what it is.
Well, agrivoltaics. I don't know that picture actually is agrivoltaics.
I think it is. I looked at it really close, and they're growing something like alfalfa.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Growing something that doesn't get high.
Agrivoltaics is growing crops beneath solar panels and between solar panels, and the crops could be anything. They could be alfalfa, but they could be putting sheep in there.
Well, I've seen some of them where they're jacking these things up 8-10 feet in the air, and they're driving tractors right under them.
That's right, and harvesting hay. And we had that beautiful thing from the Fraunhofer Institute about a year or two ago, where they tested potatoes under solar panels and found that.
Well, I'll touch base on that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
This is something. It's a marriage between agriculture and solar.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense, it's got to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
Read the title. Let me read the blurb, and then you can...
Family farms try to raise a new cash cow. Solar power.
The Komanek family farm in northern Colorado has had yields decline over recent years, and the farm began losing money. In Boulder County, land use codes made it hard to use the land for anything but farming. So the Komaneks found a compromise, a solar array with plants growing beneath. And by the way, that picture is not the Komanek family farm.
No, that's a different picture.
That is a picture from NREL, and I would bet you that that's an NREL facility in Golding, Colorado. But nevertheless.
It could very well be.
Okay, what have you got to say, Tom?
Well, what the Komanek family is going to be doing, and they've probably started it already. 1 megawatt solar array, 3,000 solar panels. They're going to be on 8-foot high stilts. Okay, and they're going to provide shade for crops like tomatoes, peppers, kale, and beans.
Yeah.
Pasture grasses and beehive boxes are planned for the perimeter.
Right.
Okay, this is going to be a demo farm for sure.
Yeah, but it's
and the approach could allow for widespread renewable energy development without displacing much needed land for food. And that's one of the complaints about solar.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of land.
Yeah.
This solves that problem.
It sure does. And we've seen crops increase
I was just going to say
many places.
I was just going to say, some crops planted under solar panels produce higher yields and use significantly less irrigation water. Coming closer to home, a project in nearby Deerfield, Massachusetts is delivering 60% more volume compared to plants beneath the full sun.
Yeah.
It didn't say what they're growing, but it's Deerfield, Mass. You can go down there and see it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we have an item from The Guardian.
Yes, we do. A quarter of all tweets about climate crisis are produced by bots. That's funny but sad.
The social media conversation over climate crisis has been reshaped by an army of automated Twitter bots, with new analysis finding that a quarter of all tweets about climate on an average day are produced by bots, The Guardian can reveal. Now, a bot is
short for robot.
Yeah, and basically in this case, the robot is just a computer, and with
it's
a
really
program.
Just a program.
It's a program running on a computer, and
and they're just sitting there all day long making comments on people's Twitters, and there's no people there.
And why are they doing that?
They're trying to change people's minds.
They're trying to guide the conversation on renewable energy. In other words, our path toward renewables is being undermined by somebody. And basically, we're back to this conspiracy theory thing. And I don't generally like conspiracy theories. I've told you that I do have one conspiracy theory. There's more than one that I subscribe to, but there is one I subscribe to, and that is that somebody is out there making conspiracy theories.
Well, climate misinformation is often spread due to readers' perception of how widely this opinion is shared by other readers.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do here.
They're trying to make it look like
Everybody thinks this way.
They found, by the way, a German girl who is the counter Greta.
Huh?
There is a counter Greta.
A counter?
Yeah, she's a girl who's a teenager who says the climate crisis doesn't exist.
Oh boy.
I'm not kidding here. This is
I don't
real.
think you're kidding.
And she's coming to the United States by plane, by the way, to address conservatives. And they're claiming that she's better than Greta Thunberg because she, the counter Greta, admits that she's financed by the fossil fuels industry.
Wow. Well, let's move along to Monday, February 24th.
With an item from Clean Technica and a new picture.
And I'll bring that picture up.
Now that's something that I think surprised Tom.
Yeah, they call it a super capacitor or a super
Doesn't look like a capacitor to me.
Well, no, it doesn't. There's another picture in the article, and they look like flashlight batteries.
Yes.
And this is brand new technology.
This is brand new technology.
When you finish talking about it, I will mention a little bit about what they actually
Tell
are.
us all about it.
So the article says super duper supercapacitors could accelerate the electric car revolution. And they could.
Scientists at University College London and Chinese Academy of Sciences say they developed a graphene-based supercapacitor that can safely charge at high speed, hold a record amount of energy, and store it for a long time. Their paper appeared in Nature Energy.
Well, graphene is a form of carbon, similar to but different from graphite.
That's right.
Okay. And
you cannot go out and buy this stuff.
No, you can't.
There's no supply for it. If you want it, you got to make it yourself.
Well, it's new technology.
Yeah.
And this article is really about technology that's in its infancy.
Yes.
But a quick rundown here. Batteries and supercapacitors do the same thing. They store energy. Batteries charge and discharge slowly, okay, which makes sense in an electric car.
Yeah.
Supercapacitors charge and discharge quickly.
Or at least they can.
At least, well, that's what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
And this article is talking about trying to change that. Okay, supercaps do not yet have the energy density of lithium-ion batteries, but technology is improving, and it says stay tuned. So this is right in its infancy, but eventually what they're leading at is you're going to have supercapacitors driving cars.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Graphene is, as you said, a new type of carbon that is, it has just astonishing characteristics. It is super strong. It is a superconductor. It is
at room temperature.
At room temperature. Well, it's by superconductor, I mean that it is extremely conductive.
Got virtually no resistance.
Well, it has very little resistance.
Okay, virtually none.
I mean
very
that
little.
it is a superior conductor, not that it is a true superconductor.
Okay.
Okay, but it is the most conductive material known to man, both thermally and electrically. And it is 3 times as conductive thermally as diamonds, which are in turn about 3 times as conductive as copper.
And interestingly enough, like diamonds, it's transparent.
Carbon is so amazing.
We haven't heard the half of it yet
No,
because we haven't figured it out.
I haven't figured out what buckyballs are for, but I know that they're a form of carbon that nobody's...
Yeah, Buckminster Fuller.
That's right. Okay, we have an item from the Daily Times.
We do. Radical hydrogen boron reactor leapfrogs current nuclear fusion technology. This could be a biggie.
It could be. You know, I resist putting in articles that have to do with nuclear power.
And this is a different kind of nuclear power.
And that includes fusion. And the reason that I do that is because the numbers that come out of the nuclear industry are if you're talking about the amount of energy that comes out from a fission event, they know exactly what's going on. But if you're talking about how much a reactor is going to cost or how long it's going to take to build, they're off by typically 50 to 100%. And if you're talking about the likelihood of a reactor melting down, they're off by an order of magnitude. And they won't even admit that. Same when you get
fusion.
That's fission.
This is fission, and they can't melt down.
They can't. This is fusion, and it can't melt down. But the fusion reactors that we've heard about, people say, well, we've got an infinite supply of fuel. They just use water. They don't just use water.
No, they use
They use
tritium.
a mixture of deuterium oxide and tritium oxide, which chemically are both water.
But they're very expensive.
Buy it. You know,
Yeah.
You can buy heavy water. You might have the FBI trying to figure out why you're buying it, but it costs thousands of dollars a liter. And tritium oxide, forget it. You're not going to buy that unless you've got a license from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And it's going to cost millions of dollars a liter. Anyway, here, let me read what it says. HB11 Energy, spin-out company from the University of New South Wales, claims to have developed a completely new form of fusion. Quote, we are sidestepping all of the scientific challenges that have held fusion energy back for more than a half a century, end quote, its director said.
Well, I read about this when I looked offline on it and got it. They've been working on this for a long time.
Yeah.
The guy that's behind HB11 Energy, HB is his initials, I believe.
Okay. This is probably his 11th design.
But he's been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
And this is what he says about it. HB11 approach to fusion does away with rare, radioactive, and difficult fuels like tritium altogether, as well as incredibly high temperatures.
Right. That's an important item.
Instead, it uses plentiful hydrogen and boron, employing the precise application of some very special lasers to start the fusion reaction.
Right.
Well, this is still in its infancy.
It's still in its infancy.
But it's got big potential.
It's got big potential. The question that you've got is, you know, with standard fusion, how do you contain the reaction, which is at 100 million degrees Celsius?
Well, he's saying you don't need to.
Exactly. And what we've had in the past was people coming up with all kinds of, I'm tempted to say Rube Goldberg designs.
Well, when you're dealing with 1 million degrees, you got to do something with it.
You do. I mean, we're talking about temperatures that'll melt anything. They'll vaporize anything.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Well, you hold it in a bottle that can't melt or vaporize because it's not made out of a solid object.
Yeah, they compress it with magnetism.
With magnets, yeah. Okay,
Now,
and if you think I'm going to be in a room where you've got 1 million or 2 million or 100 million or whatever degrees being held by a magnet, no, sir, I'm not going to be around that.
I don't think I want to be either.
We have an item from Renew Economy, and this includes an exciting photograph.
Another generation, people are going to look at that and say, what is that?
Yeah.
In case those people out there don't know, that's coal, fellas.
That's coal.
And what it says here is Morgan Stanley says 47 gigawatts of U.S. coal capacity could be uneconomic by 2024. And before you get started, I'm going to say what I say again. A gigawatt is a bigawatt.
That's right. This is from Renew Economy. Investment bank Morgan Stanley published a report claiming that nearly 50 gigawatts of U.S. coal-fired power capacity will be unable to compete against renewables by 2024. It advises utilities to replace coal plants with cheaper renewable objects. And I want to point out, I did a little bit of research, that's about 20% of all U.S. coal plants. And
I'm glad you said
but
that,
it does not include the amount that are scheduled to close. The ones they didn't.
The ones that have already been scheduled.
The ones that are scheduled.
So this is talking about all existing plants.
This is talking about 20% of all existing plants, and something like 10% of them are already scheduled to close anyway. So we're probably talking about a third of all plants falling into this category. And you know what? I don't think it's going to be a third. I think it's going to be more than that.
I think so too. It's economics.
It's economics.
Well, Morgan Stanley did their homework. They looked at each operating coal plant.
Yes, they did.
Compared it with forecasts of what it's going to cost for renewables at that location.
Right.
And they came up with conclusions that the coal plants are simply not going to be economic.
I wonder if they used Wright's Law in doing that, because Because
I'm sure they
you and
did.
I have talked about
Yeah.
Wright's Law, but there's a lot of economists who have never heard of it. And one of the things that I have discovered is Tesla claims that its success is partly due to the fact that it has used Wright's Law to forecast prices. So, you know, okay, should we carry on or beat
Well,
that donkey to
what
death?
they're saying is there's a second wave of renewable development in the U.S. coming.
Yes.
We haven't even seen it yet.
Yes.
And it's going to be so cheap that it will compete with coal power at scale no matter what, no matter where.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what Trump and the Republican Party may parrot at every opportunity.
Yes, that's right.
He keeps calling it clean coal, but it ain't.
Well, if you think about this for a minute, the cost of the coal burning plant is high. That renewables are undercutting it. He wants to keep those coal burning plants running.
Yeah.
But they are prepared to go down the route of clean coal, which means capturing the carbon dioxide, in order to keep the plants going. But all that's going to do is
gonna
increase
cost money.
the costs.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's like saying, I don't know, it's like saying, yeah, our product doesn't compete on the market, but if we just raise the price a little bit, it'll do fine.
Well, duh, I'm not sure I quite understand the logic there. But,
I don't think there is logic there.
well, we're moving up. We're moving along here. We're up to Tuesday. and
We are indeed.
I didn't click my timer there, so I can't.
That's
tell
all right.
how long
I've got an idea
You
of
got
where
one
we
there.
are. Yeah.
Well, this is from Tuesday, February 25th,
Yep.
which was yesterday, isn't it?
Yes.
Day before.
Day before yesterday. From
Solar and wind power are pushing down electricity prices in New England,
here at home.
right here at home.
This is from the Press Herald, which is I think that's in Portsmouth, Maine.
I think you're right. I think it is.
But
Yep.
it is a Maine publication. Renewable energy
Definitely
is,
New England.
Yeah, is getting renewable energy is beginning to have an impact where it counts in the cost of electricity, as companies that generate it pledge to power the New England grid at prices that keep falling and will fall more than 70% over 4 years to 2023.
Well, as of now, natural gas is the dominant fuel source.
Yeah,
But this is going to challenge it economically.
it's just not going to be.
And it's the economics.
It's the economics. Why is the oil and natural gas index low?
Well, one thing this article mentions, and they're working on this, a challenge with renewables is storage to make sure that reserve power is available.
And what we're seeing is, you know,
And people are working on that.
I don't think it's in. Next week at our show, because it appeared today. There's a town in California that just approved the second part of a massive battery. That massive battery stores over 1,700 megawatt hours.
Wow.
This is huge. They are moving in on huge batteries.
That's gigawatts,
Just
guys.
unbelievable size batteries.
And it's batteries. Huh?
Why are they? Yeah, and why are they doing that? Because it's cheaper than natural gas.
And there's other ways of storing besides batteries. I mean,
Yeah.
batteries is one of the good ones, but
Yeah.
there's the cheapest one I saw is using a crane to elevate cinder blocks,
Yes.
concrete blocks.
Yes.
Cheap, but it works.
Yeah. Well, you talk about that thing with the rail cars full of stones.
Yeah,
Same
that
kind
works
of thing.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on?
I think we should.
We
We're
have an
moving
item
along
from
here. We got a
Science
picture
Alert
coming up here.
and a picture of a bushfire in
That's in
smoke
Australia.
rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Australia.
Horrific wildfires in Australia destroyed a fifth of the continent's forests. A fifth of them.
A fifth of them. This is it's mind-boggling. Bushfires in Australia were globally unprecedented. That should be in quotes, globally unprecedented, as they destroyed over a fifth of the country's forests. Fires follow a years-long drought linked to climate change, researchers said. Australia's average annual forest loss to fires is below 2%. Australia has a fire season. They acknowledge this. It's always there.
It's always there.
But this year's forests were not the biggest, fires were not the biggest they had, because they've had fires in the outback that were not, they were just in bush country that was not forested.
Well, they've been losing annually 2%.
Which a lot of that grows back annually.
And it grows back.
Too. This is part of the natural
This is
sequence.
21%.
Yeah. This is a problem.
This is a very big, very scary thing.
Yes.
And mostly it's happening in New South Wales and Victoria, and although the article didn't mention it, it's the little island of Tasmania.
Yeah, the New South Wales and Victoria are the areas where they have the more temperate forests that are more like forests.
Our forests.
Our forests.
Yes.
And
broadleaf forests.
All of a sudden they're being destroyed by forest fires. Could they happen here? Well, those forests are remarkably similar in some respects. We don't have forests full of highly flammable eucalyptus trees. We have forests full of nearly non-flammable pine.
I wouldn't say non-flammable.
Neither would I. Scratch your head a little bit?
As they say here in Vermont, poing.
The Peshtigo fire, which happened the same day as the Chicago fire in the 1870s.
Yeah, you've
jumped
mentioned that.
Green Bay.
Yep. Wow.
I mean,
Green Bay's kind of big.
It's 10 miles across at its narrowest point.
Wow.
And there are people who believe that that fire also jumped Lake Michigan.
Yes, I've read that.
So it's like, do we really think that we're immune? We'd better stop thinking that way if that's what we're thinking. We'd probably, yeah, go ahead. Do you have anything else on that one?
Not on that one, but the one coming up fits well with what we were just talking about.
Yeah,
on the
this is
previous
from
one.
Enercom Inc. That is ENERCOM Inc.
Energy storage to accelerate global energy transition in the 2020s.
Yeah, they've got this one right, I think.
I think so.
Global energy storage deployments are set to grow from about 4 gigawatts in 2019 to more than 15 gigawatts in 2024, according to Wood Mackenzie. Costs have fallen, incentives and clean energy targets are growing, and importantly, providers are starting to see the potential of energy storage.
Well, the article says that in a few different words, but I'll read what it says.
Yeah.
Recognition of storage's value rather than its cost will be the key factor in determining growth.
You know, this reminds me of the electric bus thing. An electric bus, I saw a comparison of electric and diesel, and it said the electric bus costs 60% more than the diesel bus.
To buy. But how much less to operate?
That difference in purchase cost is paid back in 4 years. And after that, you've got a bus that is just producing money.
And it's probably going to last a long time.
Well, they figure 10 years.
It doesn't require much in the way of maintenance.
No, it has very little maintenance, and the energy costs are low, and so it's pretty. And here we're seeing the utilities come up with the same thing. Why are they putting in over 1,700 megawatts in one town in California? Because it's cheaper than natural gas.
Absolutely.
Now, we're not saying natural gas combined cycle plants. What we're talking about here is peaking plants.
Peaking plants are very expensive to operate.
They're very expensive to operate, but they're very, very important when you've got a grid paradigm.
When you need that power, you need that power.
When your grid paradigm is based on baseload power, and baseload is called baseload because it's the least load you're going to have, because that load can be addressed by really, really efficient generating capacity.
Well, there's a good, I guess you'd call it a bull market for energy storage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's different ideas that are people working on. We haven't even heard of them yet.
Yeah, and the federal government, as it stands right now, is trying very hard to keep us out of that market.
Yeah.
So we're back to let's compete with the Chinese using obsolete technology. Why don't we bring back battleships? Well, we could power them with nuclear, but of course, what Trump wants to do is resurrect coal, so we could have our battleships return to coal.
That'd be nice, yeah.
I used to love watching coal-burning locomotives going across the prairie when I was a little kid in Illinois.
I remember coal-burning locomotives.
Man.
And then the Long Island Railroad.
In 1953, I think it was, they stopped allowing them into Chicago, and I was just, what are we going to do? They aren't going to go through here anymore.
Well, they weren't allowed into New York City in my youth at all.
I think they stopped them in New York City really early.
They had to change engines.
I think it was
to electric engines.
like in the 1890s.
I would say it probably goes back that far.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't let them into Manhattan.
Okay, we've still got three items to do.
We got a picture coming up here.
We do, and we have we're up to Wednesday, February 26th. with an item from the Public News Service.
Well,
and
in
that
case you
picture-
don't know what it is, that's kelp.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about kelp.
We
right
are,
now.
and those little funny things at the bases of the leaves are air bladders that keep the sky from sinking.
Yeah, we used to pop them when I was a kid. We'd pick them up on the beach and pop them, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
that
kelp would wash up on
by
the
the way,
beach.
can provide a lot of the seaweed out there can provide food.
Food. In some places, it's eaten widely.
Yes, yeah. This is what's
In
called.
Ireland, it's kind of a delicacy. It's called dulse.
That's right. You can buy dulse in the co-op.
I bet you can, yeah.
Yeah, and in Wales, it's called laverbread.
it?
Did you read the title?
No, but I'm about to.
Okay.
Scientists warn climate change is destroying California kelp forests.
Kelp forests off the west coast are being reduced at an alarming rate by marine heat waves linked to climate change, according to 7 top marine scientists. They have written an open letter about the problem and had it published in Science magazine.
Well, from the article, kelp forests are a sentinel for the health of the oceans.
Right.
Okay? Change is happening very rapidly on a very large scale, and it's affecting the ecosystem, and very little is being done.
Yep, those kelp forests that are in danger are the living habitat for
For a lot of little
fish. And those lot of little fish are the ones that feed the lot of big fish. And if the lot of big fish don't have food, neither do we.
Well, here's the scary part.
Yeah.
Off the coast of Northern California, 90% of the kelp has died off in the past 5 years.
90% in 5 years.
90%.
That's not a good sign.
I don't think so.
Okay, should we go on?
I think so.
Our next item is from BBC.
Cutting how? How is an important word here.
Yeah.
How cutting your food waste can help the climate. And the article tells you how. So
Yeah.
if you're interested, it's a good one to read.
All food generates greenhouse gases to reach our plates, and then nearly a third of it is thrown away. That tells you something.
Absolutely.
The UN Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that if food were a country, it would be the 3rd highest emitter of greenhouse gases after the United States and China.
Well, from the article, it says, growing, processing, packaging, and transporting the food we eat, all contributes to climate change.
Yeah.
Already, before you even got it.
Yeah.
And then we throw it away. And as it rots, it releases yet more greenhouse gases.
I mean, this is you're far better off eating it.
So the article is going to tell you how, by rethinking how we shop and cook, it's possible to reduce the amount we waste.
Right.
And so lessen our contribution to climate change.
Right.
It's our consumption that drives the problem.
Right.
And this is interesting. This, I guess, is the last article.
It is
coming
indeed,
up.
and we have a
Nice
picture for this,
here.
and this is from Clean Technica. And I will point out that that bus that you see there is a double-decker, and it has a sign in the front that says Piccadilly Circus.
And it looks like any other limey bus.
Except that it's a little more modern, though, than the
Well,
ones that I think.
it looks like any more modern.
Yeah.
And the new buses look like that.
Yeah, and
But
they
they're-
have the doors to get the passengers on the wrong side.
Well, that helps.
when you drive on the
When
wrong
you drive
side
on
of the
the wrong
road.
side of the road, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's okay because they just don't know, and they all do the same thing, so they don't have head-ons any more than we do.
Well, I tell you, I've tried driving in Ireland, and it's scary
Oh yeah.
because I'm expecting when it is a dangerous situation, I'm going to move to the right, and I move right into the dangerous situation.
Yes. Yeah, and I used to live in Devon.
Yeah.
And the roads there were narrow, and they had hedgerows on both sides.
Oh boy.
And you would drive down a road that you could barely get 2 VW bugs by each other comfortably, and all of a sudden see a vehicle like that in front of you. Really.
Well, the
Okay.
article states that a London route gets an upgrade with 29 new electric double-decker buses. And as you know, you're looking at one there.
Yeah. An arterial bus route in West London is going fully electric. London United, a subsidiary of transit operator RATP DEV, took, and I think DEV I don't know what it stands for, took delivery of 29 fully electric BYD double-decker buses. They are built by BYD partner Alexander Dennis Limited.
So they're built in Britain
Yep.
using
BYD technology.
Chinese technology.
And probably Chinese motors.
And Chinese parts.
Parts, yeah.
Well, and anyhow, this is a takeaway. These new double-decker buses maintain the iconic look of West London, and I'll bring them up again because they do.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know what was driving that bus to look at it.
No, you wouldn't know that it's electric. You might know it's electric if you stood on the side of the road and had it go by.
Everybody knows the buses pile out a lot of junk, you know, and this eliminates those emissions, and you're not probably even going to notice it.
Yeah.
But in London right now, there are 234 electric buses.
234?
In Greater London.
Yeah,
this is only about 29 new ones.
Yeah. Okay, I think our time is up, Tom, and I'm
I
going to
think
put
so,
up
too.
our last item that says, have an astonishingly comfy week.
Well, I'd wave, but they're not going to look at me.
Why don't you put you on me up, and then we can wave?
Oh, let's do that.
There you go.
That's
Have
a good
an
idea.
astonishingly lovely week. Comfy week. Bye-bye.